The next characteristic of complex trauma in relationship to emotions is false guilt. So true guilt is when I do something that violates love. So I should feel guilty because that motivates me to stop lying, to stop stealing, to stop cheating, to stop being disrespectful to others. So true guilt is a powerful, good, negative emotion that's designed like anger to push me back to living within the boundaries of love. False guilt comes out of complex trauma. It's when a child is made to feel guilty even though they didn't do anything wrong. It's when they're made to feel responsible for something that wasn't their responsibility at all. This is so common in complex trauma, but most people don't even see it. They think their false guilt is actually true guilt. And so distinguishing between true guilt and false guilt is a key element in recovery. So let me give you some of the ways parents create false guilt. So number one, they blame you for stuff as if it was your fault. So dad is angry. Somehow dad makes it your fault. Mom is unhappy. Somehow mom makes it your fault. No, it's their choice to be angry, to be unhappy. It's not your fault. That's on them. But to a child, it's your fault that I'm so angry. And you believe it. And now you feel guilty when you haven't done anything wrong. Or dad and mom are getting a divorce. And somehow they make it sound like, because you're a bad kid, that's causing us to not get along, so we're splitting, it's your fault. Many children have carried that false guilt. Or anytime somebody is unhappy, somebody's in a painful emotion, somebody fails, somehow the child is made to feel it's their fault. They should have done something more. They should have helped more. They should have fixed the problem for the person. The fact that the person's unhappy must be my fault. The fact that the person failed and is struggling must be my fault. Or some kids grew up with parents who were poor. And what the parents often said to the kids is, well, it's because you kids were poor, because you cost so much. So now the kids are feeling guilty all the time that they live in a poor family. Or the child their needs are not being met. They're not connecting. They're not being nurtured. They're not being validated. And they go and they try to get those needs met. And their parents say, you're being selfish. So now they feel guilty for having a need. That's false guilt. Or they are tired. They know they need to rest. They know they need to do some self-care. They know they need to relax. But as soon as they rest and relax, their parents say, you're lazy, you're selfish, get to work. So now they feel guilty for actually taking care of themselves in a healthy way. So all of those things, the parents have been mistraining the child's conscience so they feel guilt when they're actually doing healthy stuff. And that is very common. So let me expand on that with the next one. So an unmet need in the other person. In complex trauma families, often the child is made to feel responsible for what is happening in another person. So let me give you an example. Let's say that dad is beating up mom. The child is made to feel, because of all the conditioning, that I should somehow be able to protect mom. I should somehow be able to stop it. Their sibling is being sexually abused. Now they feel guilty that it's my fault. I should have stopped it. I should have confronted dad. I should have done something. And so they have this too big sense of responsibility for everybody else when they're too little to care for everybody else. They're too little to step in and protect everybody else. If they see dad being upset, if they see mom being sad, I should make them feel better. It's my fault that they're sad or upset. If their sibling commits suicide, if their sibling gets involved in drugs, it's my fault. I should have been able to stop it. I should have been a better brother or sister to them. It's my fault. If they say no to somebody who asks for something that is unreasonable and they set a boundary, I feel guilty. I shouldn't have done that. That's being unkind. So all of those things are come out of a conditioning that I am responsible for everybody's safety, everybody's needs, and if they're not safe, if they're making bad decisions, if their needs aren't being met, somehow it's my fault. So what that is doing is setting unrealistic expectations for yourself. That's what ultimately creates false guilt. Is initially it's mom and dad set expectations for you that are unrealistic, then you internalize that, and now you set them for yourself and you create your own false guilt. So you feel guilty for having needs. You feel guilty for not being perfect. You feel guilty for not learning quickly enough the first time. You feel guilty for crying when you're hurt. You feel guilty for not reading people's minds and knowing what they wanted or what they need. You feel guilty for not knowing how to do something automatically. Some people even feel guilty for being alive, for being born, because they were told their parents' life would have been so much easier if they weren't around. Some feel guilty for being a girl rather than a boy. Some feel guilty for being neglected and abused and abandoned and not loved because somehow it's my fault. I'm bad. So all of this unrealistic expectations, you can spot it because you develop a thinking pattern that's I should have been, I should be this. Unrealistic expectations feeds false guilt. And so what happens for many people is this false guilt becomes their default setting. It's their normal. They live with it every day. They just feel guilty all the time. And so then something in their brain goes, okay, I need to feel guilty all the time to feel normal. And so if they have a day where they're not feeling guilty, their brain is going, I don't like this. Now I feel guilty for not being guilty. I need to somehow return to feeling guilty. And so they get stuck in needing to feel guilty. That is so common. And so they often will not just feel guilty for not feeling guilty, they will sometimes do stuff. They'll hyperanalyze themselves, analyze every action, every motive, and find something wrong to create guilt, or they'll do stuff that creates guilt. All of those things need to feed the default setting. And that often leads to what we talked about earlier is guilt has a second default setting is I need to keep beating myself up. I got to be hard on myself, self-critical. I got to feed the internal critic. There's one other cause of false guilt, and that is organizations, churches that set rules as to what healthy spiritual behavior is, but they're not actually based on love. They're based on somebody's preferences. So you were told you're sinning, you're being bad, you're dishonoring God, you're doing something wrong by dancing, by wearing makeup, by watching a movie, by listening to certain kinds of music. All of those things, somebody created rules, and then they said, you're bad. And it created false guilt. So what comes out of religious abuse, spiritual abuse, is usually tons of false guilt because of all the false standards that were set for you, that you were told were from God, that were the mark of health or spirituality, and you fell short all the time. And many of them weren't based on love, and it creates false guilt.